This is the first guitar my dad ever gave me when I was young. It wasn't something I stole or borrowed. It was something he intentionally passed on, a real gift that carried meaning far beyond its physical form. That guitar represents memory, emotion, and legacy. In many ways, it mirrors the story of Eddie Van Halen himself, a man who didn't just play guitar, but redefined what the instrument could do. Eddie's sound changed rock music forever, inspiring generations of musicians across the world. But when a figure like Eddie passes away, what remains is not only music, but also everything attached to it: money, rights, instruments, and emotional history. And that raises a powerful question. What happens when a legacy that big is left behind for a family to carry? Does it bring unity? Or does it slowly create unseen pressure and emotional weight that money alone can never solve? When Eddie Van Halen passed away in 2020, he left behind more than just memories of electrifying performances and iconic guitar solos. He left behind a vast financial estate estimated to be worth tens of millions of dollars. But this fortune was not simple cash. It was a complex collection of royalties, intellectual property rights, music catalogs, guitars, endorsements, and decades of creative assets. On paper, it looks like a dream inheritance built from passion and success. However, in reality, estates of this size often come with complications that the public rarely sees. The transition from legendary musician to financial legacy introduces legal processes, emotional responsibilities, and long-term management challenges. And what makes this even more complex is that Eddie's fortune is still active. It continues to generate money through streaming, licensing, and music usage. That means his legacy is not frozen in time. It is still growing, still changing, and still demanding attention. While fans remember Eddie Van Halen as a musical genius, the reality for his family is very different. Managing his estate is not just about money. It is about emotions, memories, and expectations tied together. Wealth of this scale does not simply bring comfort. It brings responsibility that can feel overwhelming. Every decision connected to royalties, licensing, or rights management carries emotional consequences. Family members are not just dealing with numbers on paper. They are dealing with the physical and emotional presence of Eddie's life's work. This is where many people misunderstand celebrity estates. They assume wealth automatically creates stability, but in reality, it often introduces pressure. Grief combined with financial responsibility can create internal conflict, even among close family members. The Van Halen estate reflects this truth clearly. When legacy and money are combined, emotional clarity becomes harder to maintain, and even small decisions can feel much larger than they really are. Eddie Van Halen's fortune did not appear overnight. It was built through decades of innovation, creativity, and relentless success. As the co-founder of Van Halen, Eddie helped shape one of the most influential rock bands in history. From their breakthrough in the late 1970s to global dominance in the 1980s and beyond, the band sold over 80 million records worldwide. And songs like Jump, Panama, and Hot for Teacher became cultural landmarks. But Eddie's earnings were not limited to album sales. He expanded into endorsements, guitar technology, and custom equipment designs that influenced the entire industry. His famous Frankenstrat guitar alone became a symbol of innovation and identity. These multiple income streams allowed him to build long-term wealth that continued to grow even during periods when he was not actively touring. Eddie was not just a performer. He was an innovator, entrepreneur, and creative force whose financial success was deeply tied to his artistic vision. One of the most powerful parts of Eddie Van Halen's estate is the ongoing royalty system tied to his music catalog. Unlike traditional assets, music does not stop generating income after death. At every time a Van Halen song is streamed, played on radio, featured in a film, or used commercially, it produces revenue. This makes his estate a living financial system rather than a static inheritance. However, managing this system is extremely complex. Rights are often shared between record labels, publishers, and co-writers, creating layers of legal and financial responsibility. The estate must ensure that every usage of Eddie's work is properly licensed and protected. In today's digital world, this becomes even more complicated due to global platforms and constant content sharing. While this structure guarantees long-term income, it also creates ongoing obligations. Eddie's legacy continues to earn money, but it also requires continuous management, oversight, and legal attention to maintain its value and integrity. Behind Eddie Van Halen's fortune lies a legal framework designed to manage and protect his assets. This includes wills, trusts, and estate planning documents intended to ensure that his wealth is distributed according to his wishes. On the surface, these structures provide clarity and control, but in reality, they can also create complications. Trusts often include detailed rules about who controls assets, how income is distributed, and when beneficiaries receive access. While these rules are meant to prevent conflict, they can sometimes become points of disagreement, especially when emotions are involved. Intellectual property rights add another layer of complexity, because they generate continuous income and require active management. Decisions about licensing, royalties, and rights usage must be handled carefully and legally. So even the smallest misunderstanding in these systems can lead to tension. This is why estate law is not just about paperwork. It is about balancing legal precision with human relationships. At the center of Eddie Van Halen's estate are the people closest to him, each carrying different emotional and financial responsibilities. His son, Wolfgang Van Halen, is both an heir and a musician continuing his father's legacy. This creates a unique position where he inherits not only wealth, but also artistic expectation. Eddie's widow, Valerie Bertinelli, also plays a significant role in the family structure and estate context, representing both emotional history and legal interest. Inheritance at this level is never simple because it blends personal relationships with financial responsibility. And each family member may have different views on how the estate should be managed, which can create tension even when intentions are good. Beyond immediate family, extended relatives or advisors may also influence decisions. This network of relationships makes estate management highly complex, where emotional history and legal rights constantly intersect, sometimes aligning, sometimes conflicting, but always influencing the outcome. One of the most valuable parts of Eddie Van Halen's legacy is his intellectual property. His music, sound innovations, trademarks, and guitar designs continue to generate income and cultural influence. Unlike physical assets, intellectual property grows in value over time as music reaches new audiences through streaming platforms, films, and digital media. However, this type of asset requires constant management. Licensing agreements must be negotiated, copyrights must be protected, and new digital platforms must be monitored. Even small changes in technology can affect how these rights are used and monetized. The estate must balance financial gain with preserving Eddie's artistic identity. There is also the challenge of ensuring that his music is not misused or devalued in modern contexts. This makes intellectual property one of the most powerful yet demanding parts of his estate. It is not just about ownership. It is about protecting a legacy that continues to evolve long after his passing.